The Hindus believe with regard to God that He is one, eternal, without beginning and end, acting by free will, almighty, all-wise, living, giving, ruling, preserving, and who is, in His sovereignty, unique, beyond all likeliness and unlikeliness, and that He does not resemble anything, nor does anything resemble Him. In order to illustrate this, we shall produce some extracts from their literature. Out of all their literature, a book named Bhagavad Gita stands one of the most important. And now I'll quote one of the portions of Bhagavad Gita. Vasudev, or also known as Shri Krishna, is telling Arjuna, I am the universe without a beginning by being born, or without an end by dying. I do not aim by whatever I do at any recompense. I do not specially belong to one class of beings to the exclusion of others, as if I were the friend of one and the enemy of the others. I give to each one in my creation what is sufficient for him in all his functions. Therefore, whoever knows me in this capacity and tries to become similar to me by keeping desires apart from his action, his fetters will be loosened and he will easily be saved and free. Further, Vasudev speaks in the same book. It is desire that causes most men to take refuge with God for their wants. But if you examine their case closely, you will find that they are very far from having an accurate knowledge of Him. For God is not apparent to everyone, so that he might perceive Him with his senses. Therefore they do not know Him. Some of them do not pass beyond what their senses perceive, some pass beyond this, but stop at the knowledge of the laws of nature, without learning that above them there is one who did not give birth nor was born, the essence of whose being has not been comprehended by the knowledge of anyone, while His knowledge comprehends everything. The Hindus consider the plants as a species of animal, meaning they believe that plants are also alive. This belief is not very common across the globe. Only the Greeks at the time of Plato had very similar thought. There is a possibility that this thought originated amongst the Hindus and then traveled across. According to the Hindus, the organs of the senses have been made for acquiring knowledge, and the pleasure which they afford has been created to stimulate people to research and investigation, as the pleasure which eating and drinking afford to the taste has created to preserve the individual by means of nourishment. So the pleasure of coitus serves to preserve the species by giving birth to new individuals. The Ved contains commandments and prohibitions, detailed statements about reward and punishment, intended to encourage and to deter, but most of it contains hymns of praise and treats of various kinds of sacrifices to the fire, which are so numerous and difficult that you could hardly count them. Ved means knowledge of what which was not known before. It is a religious system which, according to the Hindus, comes from God and is a constant pursuit of absolute truth. The Veds are not written down, as they are supposed to be chanted with a specific tone modulation, and Hindus believe that writing them down might corrupt them. The Veds are supposed to be taught by a guru to his student, and according to Hindus, this is an eternal lineage that shall go on forever. In consequence, it has happened that they have several times forgotten the Ved and lost it, for they maintain that the following passage occurs in the conversations between God and Brahman relating to the beginning of all things. According to the report of Saunak, who had received it from the planet Venus, you will forget the Ved at the time when the earth will be submerged. It will then go down to the depths of the earth, and none but the fish will be able to bring it out again. Therefore, I shall send the fish, and it will deliver the Ved into your hands, and I shall send the boar to raise the earth with its tusks and bring it out of the water. Further, the Hindus maintain that the Ved, together with all the rites of their religion and the country, had been obliterated in the last Dwapar Yuga, a period of a time which we shall speak in proper place, until it was renewed by Vyasa, the son of Parasar. The Vishnu Purana mentions, at the beginning of each Manvantara period, there will be created a new lord of a period whose children will rule over the whole earth, and a prince who will be head of the world. and angels to whom men will bring fire offerings, and great bear, who will renew the Veda which is lost at the end of each period. Now we shall talk about the sciences of Hindus. Of all the sciences of the world, be it medicine, mathematics, astronomy, or architecture, Hindus have made huge advancements in all of them. Of all the sciences, the science of astronomy is the most famous among them, since the affairs of their religion are in various ways connected with it. If a man wants to gain the title of an astronomer, he must not only know the scientific mathematical astronomy, but also astrology. It's very common for them to have long debates about the heavenly bodies. They have developed many kinds of scientific theorems known to be inscribed in books called Siddhants. They have 5 major Siddhants. The first and the most well known is Surya Siddhant by Varaha-Mihir. The second is Vasishtha Siddhant, so called from one of the stars of the Great Bear, composed by Vishnu Chandra. The third is Paulisa Siddhant by Yavan Acharya Paulisa. The fourth is Romaka Siddhant, comprising works of Romans, and the fifth is Brahma Siddhant by Brahmagupta. Varaha-Mihir has composed an astronomical handbook of small compass called Pancha Siddhantika, which name ought to mean that it contains the pith and marrow of the preceding 5 Siddhants. Now we shall talk about the discussion done by Brahmagupta in his work Brahma Siddhant. The first chapter talks about the nature of globe and other heavenly bodies. The second chapter talks about the revolutions of planets and their calculations, and the third chapter talks about the correction of the places of the planets and so forth. He also talks about the lunar solar eclipses, latitudes and longitudes of different planets. The Hindus cultivate numerous other branches of science and literature and have a nearly boundless literature. I, however, could not comprehend it with my knowledge. I wish I could translate the book Panchatantra into Persian and Arabic, but thus far they are beyond my understanding. The Hindus begin their books with Om, the word symbolizing origin of all universe. The Hindus call the universe Brahmand. Yavanacharya Paulisa says in his Siddhant, the Brahmand is the sum of earth, water, fire, wind and heaven. The latter has created behind the darkness. It appears to the eyes as blue because it is not reached by the rays of the sun and not illuminated by them like the watery non-igneous globes. Example, the bodies of the planets and of the moon. When the rays of the sun fall upon and the shadow of the earth does not reach them, their darkness disappears and their figures become visible in the night. The light giver is only one, the sun, and all the others receive light from him. Brahmand means egg of Brahma and implies that the universe is spherical in shape. All 5 major Acharya, Brahmagupta, Paulisa, Aryabhat, Varaha-Mihir and Vishnu Chandra agree that the earth is round, and they argue that if the earth were not round, then the nights and the days would have been the same, the summers and the winters would have been the same, the latitudes and longitudes would have been different from what they are now. Brahmagupta says in the first chapter of his work Brahma Siddhant, where he enumerates the heavens, placing the moon the nearest heaven to earth, the other planets in the following ones, and Saturn in the 7th. The Hindus believe that the knowledge is endless and it's necessary to know only what is essential for us humans. In the support of this philosophy, the followers of Aryabhat say, it is sufficient for us to know the space which is reached by the solar rays. We do not want the space which is not reached by the solar rays. Though it be in itself of an enormous extent, that which is not reached by the rays is not reached by the perception of our senses, and that which is not reached by the perception of our senses is not knowledge.